Hello, my name is Barry Brogan, and I want to welcome you to the North Country Behavioral Healthcare Network's Frontline Voices series. We're focusing on the people and the services that are supporting the North Country during the COVID-19 pandemic and what services are going to look like once we begin to reopen the economy and the services. Today, we're focusing specifically on children and family services available in Essex County, New York. Our guests today are Deb Mitchell, who is with Families First, and she's brought with her a number of other Family First staff, including Paul Pulsifer, Robyn Anson, and Ryan Yellott. So Deb, tell us a little bit about Families First and the work that you do there. And please, let's introduce the rest of our guests. Thank you.
I have Paul Pulsifer, who is our outreach coordinator, Ryan Yellott, who is a health home care manager, and Robyn Anson, who has a special, unique position with us. She was a recipient of services from Families First, she and her family, and she later came on board as a full-time employee who offers direct services and supports to children and adults.
Thank you, Deb. So what we want to do again is talk a little bit about what changed middle of March, early April with regards to the way services were delivered by Families First, and kind of what were the challenges that you may have experienced, and then what are some of the successes, some of the things that have worked out very nicely with the quote unquote new normal. Deb, and please, any of your folks that are with you, please jump in and let us know their perspective on these.
Families First is a not-for-profit agency that provides support and services for children and family who might be struggling socially, emotionally, or behaviorally. Families come to us voluntarily, and we offer them services in their home, school, and community. One of the things that has changed for me is I oversee youth services, where we offer opportunities for children and families to be out in the community and enjoying different events, and we can no longer do that. So the youth services aspect of Families First is on pause. And unfortunately, we've had to cancel our Children's Mental Health Awareness Walk. We also have a fundraiser raffle, which we've had to cancel. And we're not sure. We have a nice public appearance at Elizabethtown Day here in Elizabethtown, and I'm not sure that that's even going to happen. So some of those sort of services have either been canceled or on pause. I think I'll pose this question to Ryan, who is who is a care manager.
What's been your experience as we've moved through these months under the COVID pandemic restrictions?
Yeah, so my role as a health home care manager is to work with families to identify a set of realistic and measurable goals. So it's client driven. It's a little different for every case because every family has different needs. And then to work with them to connect them to the needed resources or to resources that are necessary to achieve those goals and to support them throughout their involvement with the agency. So that overarching responsibility hasn't changed with the shutdown. I think the primary change for us is that everything we do is through Zoom or through phone contact. So we're not able to be as flexible with families as we were previously when we would travel to their homes or meet them in the community or see kids at school. So that has worked well in some cases. Some families have been very comfortable reaching out by phone. And I've actually found that some families have become used to it, and so they're more prone to reach out when they need support, whereas in the past, they might have waited a week until we were scheduled to meet in person. I think the barrier, though, is that not every family has equal access to high-speed internet or technology or Zoom capabilities. So those kind of benefits of increased communication aren't necessarily equally distributed across all of our clients.
So let me just do a quick follow-up with you. With regards to, for those folks that do have connectivity, and I know that, certainly this is one of those things about health access disparities that are not unique to rural communities, but certainly prevalent in some rural communities or parts of rural communities. But let's talk about some of those things that really worked well, within your toolkit of things that you have to work with families and children. What's an example of something that maybe surprised you about how well it actually worked?
Mm-hmm. So this gets a little bit away from the care management side of things, but just as a coordinator for families, I'm kind of aware of the dynamic that families are striking up with service providers. I think that going into the shutdown, expected across the board, a lot of our kids would struggle to engage with providers through Zoom. That hasn't necessarily been the case. There are some clients who actually enjoy that type of contact, and you can kind of be creative with it. So I know of one example where an individual played a game with a client through Zoom, where they were, or over the phone, but connected online to play a game together. And so it's kind of required people to be creative, but it's actually kind of generated some new interesting ways to work with clients that we probably wouldn't have thought of before, because we focused on face-to-face in-person contact.
Very good. And Paul, your thoughts about the kind of the changes that have occurred during the pandemic rules, and kind of what challenges have you seen, and what things have worked really well, in your line of work?
Sure. I think, as Deb said, I'm the community outreach and operations manager at Families First. And I think, initially with the start of COVID, everything changed, and it changed rather abruptly. As Ryan said, probably the only constant was the responsibilities of the job. But everything from like service provision to documentation changed very abruptly. One of the difficult parts for me is, in a portion of the business that relies very heavily on relationships and like face-to-face human interaction, the absence of that has been difficult. We find it difficult to keep our finger on the pulse of agencies or schools that may need some extra outreach. As one of my sole responsibilities in that area is to really educate folks about the programs and services that we offer, who's eligible, and what we can do to assist children and families. As far as what's going well, I think for sure people have been very receptive to email communication, phone calls, trying their best to kind of till up, if you will, the population of children and families who might be struggling during this time. The hardest part is for sure the lack of face-to-face interaction. Kudos to New York State for shifting on the fly pretty quickly, realizing that we provide a pretty essential service to some very high need children and families, and that service needs to remain constant for them throughout this very difficult time.
Good, thanks, Paul. Robyn, what are your thoughts about, what have you seen, what are your observations about the work that you do and the families that you interact with during the last several weeks?
My job specifically is face-to-face with families or children. In the past, telephonic or Zoom meetings were not an option for family peer advocates. All our work is done in person. So we really had to switch up our way of doing things, but also make our families still feel like we were available to them and that they could still reach out when needed. What I have found is that the contact has been a huge benefit for a lot of my clients. We talk more often because we don't have to take in the wait to next week till I see you kind of situation. If there's a behavioral problem at home that they need help getting through, or a school question that they need help getting through, they don't have to wait for me. If I'm available, we can talk. I'm talking to my families 2 or 3 times a week compared to once or twice every other week. So that has been a benefit to all of us. The one thing that we are noticing as far as some of the difficulties are, our families are being inundated with phone calls from everybody. So it's hard to fit us in sometimes and be positive with them and try to keep them on focus. But the majority, our work has not changed. We have still been there to benefit and to support these families, and maybe in some cases, even in a stronger way.
Wow, that's great to hear. Well, we're just about out of time for our interview today, folks. And I want to again thank you. Deb, I'm going to bring it back to you to wrap us up. I want to make sure that folks watching the video know how to get in contact with Families First in Essex County. Families that may feel that although they have not had to access services or haven't felt the need to access services previously, right now maybe they're feeling stresses they've never felt before. So for folks that want to reach out to Families First in Essex County, how would they do that?
So they can simply pick up the phone and call us at 518-873-9544. And my cell number is area code 518-802-8714. And I'll be the person that someone would speak to if they have a child who might be struggling and they don't know what to do and where to go. We're here to help. Our front door might be locked, but our telephone lines are open, and our hearts are open to anyone who might be struggling and would like some help.
That's great to know. Well, again, thank you all, Deb, Paul, Robyn, and Ryan, for joining us today for the North Country Behavioral Healthcare Network Frontline Voices. My name is Barry Brogan, and thank you for joining us.